This is a model of a rail freight ferry built in the German Democratic Republic in the late 1980s, at the height of the Cold War. Known as Type EGF-321, these were the largest ships built in the GDR and the largest railway ferries in the world. The word Eisenbahngüterfähre, shown here with its abbreviation EGF, means railway goods ferry. Today we are familiar with roll-on, roll-off ferries, but the concept actually started with train ferries in the 1830s, well before motor vehicles even existed. The first rail ferries in the 1830s were simple open barges to cross non-tidal rivers or canals. By the 1980s, they had reached the peak of engineering innovation. Russia was East Germany's most important trading partner. Rail and passenger links between the two countries had reached capacity by the late 1970s, and political unrest in Poland meant that an overland route was unsustainable. In June 1982, the Joint Government Commission of the USSR and the GDR agreed to set up a rail freight ferry line between the two countries, from Mukran in Germany to Klaipeda in Lithuania. This was a major commitment. More than 5 million tons of goods were to be transported annually, up to 30% of all freight traffic between Russia and East Germany. 6 ferries of this type were to be built at the Matthias-Thesen shipyard in Wismar, 3 for the GDR and 3 for Russia, though only 5 were ever completed, 2 for East Germany and 3 for Russia. They were purely designed to carry rail freight, though there were suspicions in the West that they could be used to transport military personnel and vehicles. They were operated by a crew of 42 in individual cabins. 6 two-person cabins provided accommodation for guests. The colour is unusual, as none of the completed vessels were actually painted this way. Although there are several explanations, this certainly made it possible to have the model on display without endorsing any specific operator, at a time of high political tension. The ships were equipped with tracks in Russian broad gauge on both decks, which meant that a freight capacity 35% higher than that of standard gauge wagons was possible. There was 1,539 meters of usable track on board, and 103 freight wagons could be transported, with 49 cars on the main deck and 54 on the partially open upper deck. The loading and unloading of both decks took place via landside double-deck bridges, and 2 double-deck dock levelers were built in each ferry port to load and unload 2 ferries at the same time. It was intended that the entire loading and unloading process would take no more than 4 hours per ship. After full commissioning, it was intended that up to 1,250 wagons could be dispatched per day. An entirely new port at Mukran on the island of Rügen was built specially by the GDR for this service. Loading heavy railway carriages posed significant engineering and logistical challenges to ensure the stability of the ship was not endangered. The solution was an automatic heeling compensation system located amidships, which ensured a relatively stable position for the ships during the loading process, but which also dampened rolling at sea. A vulnerability in all ships of this type was the tailgate. Here it was 18.5 meters wide and was hoisted 6 meters above the upper deck during loading and unloading. When unloading, the outer tracks were unloaded first, and both at the same time, to maintain stability. The ship has an unusually high side of 15 meters. Such high sides are characteristic of train and car ferries, and creates a large intact freeboard, enabling them to survive remarkable angles of heel. The ships are divided into 12 watertight compartments by 11 transverse bulkheads extending from the bottom of the ship to the main deck, though the huge internal carriage deck was a very high-risk area because it could not be compartmentalized. It was imperative that it was kept entirely watertight, otherwise the free surface effect of even a small amount of water would cause the ferry to capsize very quickly. She was powered by 4 diesel engines, each with an output of 3,660 horsepower, and could reach a cruising speed of 16.6 knots. In addition, there are 2 transverse thruster systems in the bow, each of which ensured good maneuverability. With the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989, rail traffic on this route significantly decreased, and only temporarily revived between 1990 and 1994, when it was used for the withdrawal of Soviet armed forces. Although train ferries are still in use today, this unique era of the Baltic train ferries of the Cold War has long passed.